So it was a fun and interesting story this week, and by fun I mean horrifying. New Zealand proposed, I believe, to the United Nations that there be an international ban on killer robots. So, what is a killer robot? So, a killer robot is essentially any autonomous robot that makes decisions about the ending of a human life. And in this process, in order for it to be categorized as a killer robot, there has to be no human involved. Okay, so imagine if a drone flying overhead used its camera to spy on someone, to match their face to, I don't know, say a database of wanted individuals, or a kill list or what have you, decided that that was the person it matched, and then the computer made the decision to kill the individual. The individual then dies. Well, is killed. Sorry. That is a killer robot. And by the way, it doesn't just have to be drones. They make these kind of robot dogs with guns on them, which I actually think featured in an episode of Black Mirror. So if you find yourself making something that looks like it's out of Black Mirror, maybe just think about your life choices a little bit. But anyway, this seems like a perfectly reasonable proposal. Who on earth could possibly be against? And the United States has rules saying that they will prohibit the blocking of this type of resolution. Okay, so this is bad. So essentially, what New Zealand is asking for is the single most logical thing on planet Earth. The taking of a life should be, for lack of a better word, sacred. It should be difficult to do. It should be a thing that is not done often, okay? No, regardless of the circumstances, military, non-military, whatever, we should be in the practice as humans of avoiding taking the life of other humans, okay? Fine. But when you entrust a computer to this decision, you introduce a myriad of problems, not least of which is you can almost guarantee that this checking, this verification the computer has of who it's going to be killing is going to be based off an algorithm, right? And algorithms, as I've mentioned on the show before, incorporate the biases of the individuals who have made them. So, that's just kind of a really quick, hey, this is why this is a bad thing. But you can probably think of hundreds of reasons why it's bad to have killer robots. One of the most interesting of which might be if you take the stakes out of war, there might be war for all sorts of stupid reasons, right? As long as you can guarantee that no humans are going to die, or at least on your side, then the cost of war, as it were, seems to be a lot less. One of the reasons, by the way, for that the Vietnam War ended is because there were protests about the number of American bodies coming home. Right at the end of the Vietnam War, there were 56,000 dead, approximately, give or take. I think more modern counts take a little higher, but just around that much. So when we see bodies coming home, war becomes unpopular, which is not surprising. We don't like it when our own people get killed. But if we can present to the people, hey, sure, there's a war going on, but then no boots on the ground. There's no individuals. We just, we have an army of robots that is doing all this killing. It isn't as real to people because they don't see the actual consequences, especially with the United States, whose all of its wars have been over some sort of large amounts of land. We've never attacked or directly invaded in many of our lifetimes a direct neighbor. So we're not seeing the actual casualties on the opposite side, or if we do, oftentimes those groups have been dehumanized, which is bad in its own way. But when we already cannot see the consequences of our actions, and then you add on top of that the ability to totally automate the process of war, you make for very scary situations where we are comfortable as a people with imperial power, which is essentially what the United States wields, being used autonomously anywhere in the world to secure our interests. And that's horrifying. As I started the segment with, we should do everything in our power to not take human lives. This just doesn't do that. So you would think that someone going to the United Nations and saying, hey, can we not make killer robots, would be a perfectly reasonable and objectionless recommendation. However, the United States does, in fact, have policy that says that they will oppose these types of things because we are, as a country, looking to automate war, which is incredibly scary. We should not be doing that. And by the way, one other reason we should not be doing that, just to kind of come full circle back to the United States, is there's an interesting thing that happens with American war, and this has to do with money and politics, of course, is that lots of the tactics and weapons and items that are used in our wars abroad conspicuously make their way home. Ferguson looked a lot like Kandahar, and that wasn't by accident. So if we as a people allow our government to get away with creating autonomous kill robots and using them abroad, it is only natural that it is entirely likely that those types of measures, and maybe it's not lethal weaponry, but maybe it's non-lethal weaponry, is done at home. What if you went to a protest and instead of facing off against a riot cop, you faced off against a robot who had essentially an unlimited canister of tear gas and rubber bullets and just fired it at anyone who got within a certain range? That could happen. So we as Americans have to push back on this notion that it is okay for our government to advocate for killer robots, because any technology that is used, first of all, we should do it because it's morally the right thing to do to not have killer robots, obviously. But if we want to be selfish for a moment, then we should really do it because if we allow them to happen abroad, they're going to come home. And I can't imagine it wouldn't be chilling to someone to know that instead of trying to go up against a human being who maybe you can convince, maybe you can appeal to their humanity, you're going up against a robot who doesn't have any. And then the state, there's no cost to repression for them. There's no need to have human beings that are on the line who can defect, who can, have a heart, who can do any of these things. Once we allow this process to go forward, and I know I'm beating this to death, but I feel very passionately about this, you essentially are in a situation where, who knows what other types of lethal and semi-lethal things you could automate. The point is, we should not allow this to happen. We should, if possible, contact our representatives and tell them, no, we do not want killer robots. We do not want America's policy to reflect that killer robots are okay, and we want the United States to support New Zealand's resolution to ban killer robots. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you liked it, throw a like on it, share with your friends, and subscribe for more of our content. You can also find all of our videos and clips on youtube.com. Just search Let Them Eat Bread and you'll find all of our content. Alright guys, see you next time. Bye for now.